approaching towards the audit date, which is in 15th January. So we have deemed that now we should have one topic on this, and that is the intricacies on VAT audit. You must be observing that why this video shooter is over here. Because this is the first time we are introducing this concept that after this meeting, the whole lecture would have a live video shooting, and then we will upload the same on the website. So everybody is requested to, whenever they wanted to see that, they can take the benefit of the same, so that it would have a great help to us. Pardon? No, this would be done after some time. And this would be helpful for the persons, especially the outstation members who cannot come over here. And always the live thing is more lively than the video thing. Now I request our President Pankaj Parekh to say a few words.
Office bearers on the dais, my colleague in the managing committee, seniors in the profession, and dear members. Very warm good afternoon to everybody. This year we have enjoyed and celebrated Diwali festival without having deadline mentioned on our end. Now we have to gear up for VAT audit deadline, which is on 15 January 2014. From that perspective, we have kept today's lecture on intricacies of MVAT audit. New Form 704 is notified for the year 2012-13 by the CETEC department, and some important changes are made in the New Form 704. So friends, let us hear CA Janak Wadani on the subject of intricacies of MVAT audit. Secondly, I wish to inform you that our 17th NRRC is scheduled on 15th and 16th November 2013 at Vile Parle. So I request you to kindly enroll as a delegates as early as possible. Thirdly, I also request you to send your queries in advance for parental session so that we can incorporate in the booklet of NRRC. I also invite you all along with your family members to the Diwali get together and Foundation Day celebration program on 15th November 2013 at 5 p.m. at Vile Parle at nominal fees of ₹100 per person. There will be religious discourse by Deepaben from Brahma Kumari for 45 minutes, and thereafter there will be an entertainment program followed by dinner. The most awaited event of RRC is also finalized now. This year we are having RRC at Jaipur from 8 to 13 February 2014. You shall receive detailed circular on our website within a couple of days. Kindly enroll as early as possible so that we can book your tickets. Thank you very much.
Request today's learned faculty to take charge of the same. I think I have to just briefly introduce him. Mr. Janak Wadani, he is a practicing chartered accountant and he is practicing since 1985 in the area of sales tax. He has presented various papers at NRRC and RRC organized by the various professional organizations like our own association, Sales Tax Practitioners Association, WIRC of ICAI, Chamber of Tax Consultant, AIFTP and so on. He is regularly contributing articles and columns on the sales tax in various tax journals. He was the associate editor of the Sales Tax Review for year 2001, 2002 to 2002-03. He was the chairman of the Malad Chamber of Tax Consultant in the year 2006-2007. He was a national treasurer of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners in 2008 and 2009. And at present he is the associated editor of a journal published by the All India Federation of Tax Practitioners and member of the subcommittee of various tax professionals associations of Mumbai. With this brief introduction, I request all the members to welcome the vibrant personality Mr. Janak Wadani. As a mark of our love and affection, I request our President Pankaj Bhai to give him a flower of.
Very good day. 2070, the figure is 9, it is a perfection. And also in American style of the writing a day, today is 11, 12, 13. A very auspicious day, a rare occasion comes only once in century. We have been getting the WhatsApp messages that we are the fortunate members of the generation who have witnessed the 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, so on, 11, 12, 13 is the last amongst them. So then there would not be a 12, 12, 13, no, it won't be a 12, 12, 13 would be there, but 12, 13, 14, no. So I consider today is a very auspicious day for all of us, and what a great occasion to start the year with the MVAT audit. See, in one of the meetings, there was a discussion that which audit carries a greater risk. Which audit carries a greater risk? I was there when this talk was being debated. The statutory auditor said that the statutory audit carries a greater risk. I said that you carry the greater risk because you are giving an opinion on the financial statement based on unaudited books of accounts. So you are the first person to verify the books of accounts and draw a conclusion and form an opinion whether financial statements prepared by the auditee is true and fair. Then comes the income tax auditor. He is giving the opinion if the books are audited under the statutory audit that particular mention in Annexure 3CE is true and correct, and he carries little less risk based on, he is giving the opinion based on an audited books of accounts. And one chartered accountant has already examined the books of accounts and formed an opinion. Based on that, the income tax auditor is giving the opinion. And what about VAT audit? It is the last in a row. And in the priority of any organization also, the VAT matter is being handled by the lowest level of in the management. And whenever we ask for any details for the VAT related thereto, they give the least and the last priority. That is my experience. It's like the bill of the professional. They ignore our circular. What is there? Then VAT audit carries a least risk because the VAT auditor gives the opinion not on the financial statements prepared by the auditee, but he gives a certificate based on the verification of the returns filed by the dealer with reference to the books of accounts and sales tax related records maintained by the auditee, and gives the certain particulars in annexures right from A to K. A to K without giving any certification that these are true and correct. If we look at the part 1 of the audit report form 704, the various certificates are mentioned, but none of the certificate includes that particular mention in annexure A to K is true and correct. And what about VAT returns? We have been asked to verify the returns, but we don't have the returns on our hand. Even the department also not finding where is the returns filed by the dealer when it was a physical, and now in electronic format, despite it is e-returns, they are asking the copy of the returns. And that is the fact of the audit report, that despite it is e-file, they are asking the copy of the VAT auditor not by the one authority, by the multiple authority. Wherever we go, they are first say, please file your form number 704. And that I take it positively, because the VAT audit report furnished by the dealer is being used by the department to a great extent. We have burned our fingers and find that in yesteryears that the incomplete furnishing of the details in J1 leads to the issue-based notice. Incomplete furnishing the details in Annexure J2 also invited the issue-based audit. In some cases, it has invited the enforcement action also. So So the importance of the furnishing a correct and complete details in form number 704 is not important only for the VAT auditor but also is important for the VAT dealer. That is what I wanted to say in the initial beginning. Friends, I will not deal with each and every aspect of the 704 amendment. I am asked to restrict myself to the sum of the important intricacies in carrying out or conducting the VAT audit. I am not going to discuss the intricacies relating to the VAT law. My scope of the speech is limited to the some of the problems which we would be facing in conducting the VAT audit with reference to the provisions of the VAT law. One of them is this recent amendment in the clause D inserted in form 704 that I would be dealing, certificate regarding the issue involved where the tribunal has decided and the department has filed a reference. And then I will try to discuss some of aspect of the J1, J2 tax invoices, and if time permits then I will try to answer the questions of the member. Recently the Institute of Chartered Accountants has published an announcement that we all knew that the report by the auditor is to be given in a prescribed format, and there is the SA Standard of Auditing 700 issued by the Institute, which a member of the Chartered Accountant is required to comply with. Now, under the income tax as well as the MVAT audit report, we are not being given a liberty to make any changes in the format of the audit report. So the Institute has made announcement that in such cases, we have been permitted to file the audit report in the prescribed form by the statute. Otherwise, for all other purposes, this SS 700 is of the members to the completeness of the audit report. As we have seen that for the purpose of the assessment, the commissioner has to satisfy whether returns filed by the dealer is correct and complete. And we had a provision in the MVAT Act when a return filed by the dealer is not correct and complete, and the department was to issue the notice, and then we have to file a fresh return. With the development of filing of e-return now, it will not be a case of a return filed which is not complete. It may be incorrect, it may be a correct, but it may not be an incomplete return. So that provision is not being implemented by the VAT department. So that same analogy they have drawn, and in 8.9 what they found, that many dealers have not furnished the annexures applicable. Maybe because they did not have any information or whatever the reason may be. Now the government has made a law and has provided a penalty for filing incomplete audit report. See, the penalty is the equivalent or equal to the effect of non-furnishing of one audit report, 0.1% of turnover of the sales. And they have defined that what is the meaning of a term complete audit report. The complete report as per exception 2 means only if all the items, certification, tables, schedule and annexures are filled appropriately and are arithmetically self-consistent. Now when the VAT audit report is to be filed online, I don't find any difficulty in arithmetically self-consistencies of the audit report, because some of the field of the schedules are auto-calculated. But what is worrying that about the filling of applicable annexures, if those annexures are not filled, then the audit report is considered to be a incomplete audit report and could attract the penalty. Now, this is like what? Kare koi bare koi. The audit report is to be given by the VAT auditor. If he commits a mistake in furnishing incomplete audit report, the penalty would be on the dealer and not on the VAT auditor. And as a VAT auditor, I apprehend that in the near future, I should not be subject to any action by a dealer saying that, look, you have given me incomplete audit report, therefore I am being penalized. So, I suggest and advise that we as an auditor have to take utmost care in seeing that all the necessary applicable annexures are filled properly. And one of the points which I would like to mention in this respect is that in part 1, we all knew that we have to tick applicable schedules, annexures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if we tick something which is not filled, then the department may take a view that this audit report is incomplete. So that is the job of the person who is responsible to sign the last thing on the VAT audit report and just check it for a minute. It will not take more than 2 minutes to see that the whatever schedules and annexures we have filled is or are only ticked while furnishing part 1. I will just check what is that part 1. The great Justice Dr. V.P. Sharaf late, when I went before him to have a forward on our book, and he said in 1998 to me that how you have compiled the book. I frankly admitted this is not done by me, this is done by the printer. Then he asked me the question how he has compiled it. I knew little bit about the computer, I could answer him that it was on a computer, and I explained him how it was done. Then he says in the next few years, if you do not know the computer, then you would be considered as illiterate. And today I say that I am illiterate in that respect. I admit it. Now you see that in all the audit report, the first page we did not take the statutory audit report under the company's law, income tax audit report form number 3CB, it should be the last exercise. According to me, we must start from the last thing, start from annexure K, come to the annexure J, and then A, B, B, A, and like that, and come to the first page of the audit report, and then you take this schedule 1, 2, 3 as applicable. Then we will be avoiding the one mistake committed by the VAT auditor, having ticked the applicable schedule and not filled, which would lead to the incompleteness of the audit report. I mean, I wonder that how many members or the dealers would be able to complete this requirement. Now, what is this? In part 1 in clause D and table 7 are introduced from 23/8/2013. Now, one of my client was telling me, Janak bhai, please furnish the VAT audit report in the month of the June. I said, what is the hurry? Why you should file this now? Let it be when your income tax audit is completed. I delayed it. Now after 23rd August, I have to see this whether the issue is there and whether this certificate I am able to give it. Now, what is that certificate? On the basis of an information available on the website of the department. And then we remember the question of the dealer, what is the address of the site? I have remembered it by heart, mahavet.gov.in. So that is the site, in which a decision against the state government or the commissioner was delivered by the tribunal. So there has to be a decision against the department and tribunal, not against the dealer. And the reference and stock or appeal therein is pending before appropriate forum, except detailed in table 7 herein below, if applicable. What does it mean? Now the first thing, under the VAT Act, there is no provision to file in reference. Then why they use this word reference in this Form 70 Act? We don't have that reference. Now we have got a direct appeal, third appeal before the High Court. There is no reference provision. It was under the earlier enactment, Bombay Sales Tax Act, not under the VAT. Now, what the certificate we are giving, just repeat, I am repeating it, on the basis of the information available on the website. So we don't have to look here and there. First we have to find out, is there any information available on the website? Answer is yes. Then go what information? Which information? That is in respect of a decision against the State Department or Commissioner was delivered by the tribunal and reference or appeal is pending. Friends, this is to be given where the reference or appeal is pending before the High Court or Supreme Court, before the highest appropriate forum, and not in respect of the matter which is already concluded. See, this is the certificate. The certificate refers about the decision of a tribunal given against the department, and the reference is filed by the government which is pending, and not in respect of any reference which is already decided. I will discuss that when we will refer that list of the cases on the department, whether that information is sufficient enough to give the certificate in this format. The particulars are to be given is with reference to the serial number, reference stock, appeal number, name of dealer, that's all. Only three type of serial number is automatic, the reference or appeal number and the name of the dealer. That is to be given. Name of the dealer means not the name of dealer of whose audit is conducted. The name of the dealer in whose case reference or appeal is pending. This reminds me the very interesting information shared by the Commissioner in one of the meetings, that in VAT audit report we have to furnish the details of income tax deduction or sales tax deducted. And we were surprised when the Commissioner shared the information with us that in the initial years of the audit, certain members have given the information relating to the income tax deduction. So therefore I am just reminding that the name of the dealer means not the name of the person whose audit is to be conducted, but person in whose case the reference is filed or appeal is filed. Then the question, if more than one issue is referred, out of which only one is applicable, then what? Now it may happen that in one reference or appeal, more than one issue are involved. And out of that only one issue is applicable to us, not the rest of them. Here we don't have to mention what is the pendency, what is the issue relating to it. We have to just give the reference number and name of the dealer without giving information with respect to the issue for which reference or appeal is filed. The certificate refers the issue involved, but the information asked in table 7 is not with reference to the which issue is involved. Only we have to give the details of the name of the dealer and the reference number, that's all. What is the date of the reference, date of the judgment, original judgment, we don't have to give that information. We have got very good saying in this computer, GECO, garbage in, garbage out. This is going to happen. They are asking the incomplete information. And when we are furnishing incomplete information, which is provided that way by them, then no penalty. But when we give the incomplete information in bad audit report, they will levy the penalty, saying that incomplete audit report. Then the next question is, when subsequently decision is given by the High Court or Supreme Court in the same matter or in any other matter under the MVAT Act or under other state act, should the VAT auditor report it or not? Now see the situation, two type of the situation. The reference or appeal which is being on the website is being decided by the High Court or then in that case, according to me, we need not to report this certificate because it talks about pending references or pending appeal and not the concluded matter. Although they may not have updated the list of the website with reference to that decision given by the High Court or appropriate higher forum. I have also downloaded the information. We will discuss that information point-wise also. That what kind of the information is available on the website and what are the problems in this respect. Now as regards the decision is pending, now when we look at the information, there are more than one references relating to the same issue. Out of that one issue is already decided, other issues are still pending. Then what to do? Take the case of motor car dealer registration insurance charges, whether forms part of sale price or not. First reference in the case of the Sehgal Motors, which is decided by the High Court in favor of a dealer. And still we have got the list of the references in case of the Sanjay Automobiles. The similar issue is pending, that matter is still pending before the High Court. I mean, such cases should be reported or not to report. Another example, that a matter is referred and pending before the High Court, but other High Court has given a decision on the same matter identically applicable to our matter or by a Supreme Court, then what to do? I will give the classic example of margarine. The Bombay High Court has decided against the dealer that margarine is not a vegetable essential oil taxable at 12.5%. Matters pending before the Supreme Court, stay is granted. And the Supreme Court in another matter has decided that margarine is a non-vegetable essential oil taxable at 4%. Now if those cases are listed in reference, then what to do? The two views are possible. One is that on a literal reading of that certificate, that we have to report whatever the issues are referred by the department and publish on the information on the website. That is the conservative view. No matter whether subsequent decision is taken by the Supreme Court or High Court in another matter, we have to report it. Then another view is that it discusses about the issue. Now when a High Court or Supreme Court decides any matter, can we say that it remains to be issue? The High Court and Supreme Court, when it decides, it settles the issue. It is a statement of a law declared by the High Court and Supreme Court, and no longer it remains to be an issue. So the first part of the certificate is issue. That issue is decided by the High Court and Supreme Court. Therefore, according to me, it needs not to be referred in this certificate. But a conservative view, those who wants to take it, they may refer or they may make an observation that in view of the Supreme Court decision, we have not referred this matter under this table and so issue is this. Like that, we can give the informative notes. Now the problem is that Form 704 does not give a provided space where we can give the informative notes. See, there are the notes with reference to the qualification remarks and a supplementary or informative notes. We have got a provision for a qualification remarks, table 5 or something is there where we have to write the qualification. We have got a negative certificate. Under each clause, by clause A, clause B, clause C, clause D, negative certificate. But there is no space provided to give a supplementary or additional information. Then what to do? According to me, you give in the negative certificate itself. Let there be a debate whether you can give the information in the negative certificate by way of additional information or not. But that will serve the purpose. We wanted to communicate to the department the view of a dealer that this certificate is not applicable in my case. This table 7 is not applicable in my case in view of the certain decision later on by the High Court and Supreme Court. It is advisable for our association that in such matter we should refer to the commissioner and have his view on that matter. Otherwise, what will happen? That there will be a flood of issue of the notices either under section 23(5) or 23 in all these cases where the issue is already decided. And there won't be any revenue to the department because of that exercise. And those dealers who are not filing audit report, who are not registered, and who give the affidavit that I have not done any business, they will be exempted from payment of the tax. Because they are not going to assess them. In one of the meetings, one of my clients told me that Janakbhai, what to do to save the taxes. I said, you do the business, bindas, collect the taxes, have the transaction recorded in your bank account and then give the affidavit, I have not done any business, they will not touch you. They will do the prosecution, but there is no fancy. Those are, that's all. There won't be any liability to make the payment of the tax. In one of the meetings, the Commissioner of Sales Tax, when we asked him that what you have done to recover the tax from the Hawala dealer, suspicious dealer, he replied that we have launched a prosecution proceedings. Then what will happen? By enforcing the prosecution proceedings, whether the department would be in a position to recover the tax collected by the suspicious dealer, that is the big question. According to me, the prosecution proceeding is not the correct method to recover the tax. The only correct method to recover tax is have them assessed, pass the assessment order and enforce the recovery procedures, and then only the department would be in a position to recover the taxes. We are not here to defend the suspicious dealer, those who have done something wrong. But we want that let it be decided first that who is the beneficiary of the Hawala transaction, whether the selling dealer or the purchasing dealer, and we don't mind that you take the strict actions against those persons who are avoiding the taxes. Now, details is to be given only on the basis of the information available on the website. Then the something comes in my mind. If on the last day light goes, if my website information is not available, then what to do? Forget it. You will not be able to furnish audit report. Why you are worrying this? Then where your mind will go? And don't ask here and there whether this issue is involved or not. Look at the website. If you can find out, fine. The big question is how to find out that. There are a lot of information available on the website. How to make the best use of those information. In one of the city studies in Kandivali last Saturday, they had arranged a very good lecture. How to use the Google. Information on the Google. There are a lot of information available on the website. Only we need how to use it best. And in that respect, don't ask me the question, I am illiterate in that matter. I know only on the smartphone to play the game and receive the SMS, receive the emails, and if possible to reply. Now, according to me, the effort by the department to find out the cases where they can issue the notice for assessment in those cases because of provisions of section 23 into bracket 8, where the government, the commissioner has been given a power to ignore the decision of the tribunal and determine the tax liability as if that there is no decision by the tribunal, and the recovery of the tax and interest is to be kept in abeyance. As and when the decision is taken by the High Court or a higher appropriate forum, then automatically they need not to make an amendment. If the decision is in their favor, they can straight away recover the taxes. If the decision is against the department, then no action would be taken, the demand notice would be amended. Now, that purpose is not served by asking this certificate from the VAT auditor. The reason is that when audit report is furnished before uploading the data on the website, then what? This has happened for the periods prior to this 12/13. There are number of decisions taken by the tribunal which have been pending before the High Court, and the department has not taken any action. And even in the list of the parameters selected for the issue of the business audit notice, this parameter is not there. The greatest example is the sales to ONGC. The matters pending before the tribunal, matters pending before the High Court, Supreme Court, and in the parameter they are not selected that whenever you are making sales to the ONGC, this should have been subject to assessment, and not only that mismatch of J1, J2. It's the most clerical exercise. Even that has been admitted by the Commissioner by law of Trade Administrative Circular 23A dated January 2012, I think 13, it is on the website of the department, that the physical exercise of the mismatching of the data has not resulted in a fruitful exercise. That's a statement by the Commissioner on the circular, file of circular. So mismatching of the data J1, J2 has not led to a tax evasion to a great extent subject to or except those hawala transactions. But otherwise in most of the cases, the dealer was in a position to reconcile the data in J1, J2. So that exercise undertaken by the department may not lead that much revenue, then the exercise should be taken by the department to find out whether the such cases are required to be selected and find out the cases of the dealer where such